teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. City Council meetings will be held by teleconference only until further notice. Rather than attending in person, residents should call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will be open just prior to the start of the closed session meetings and again prior to the start of the open session. Written public comments can be submitted via email to cityclerk@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the council meeting, to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by number or name. City council meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and also available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link: www.prcity.com/YouTube. And with that, I will call our meeting to order and invite everyone to mute their microphones with the exception of Councilman Hammond, who I'd like to have lead the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Join with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For invocation, we're scheduled to have Pastor Pat Sheehan. He is not with us yet, so we are going to move on with our roll call, please.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Strong.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
And I am present. May we please have staff introductions.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director. With me tonight is Darren Nash, our City Planner. Dave Athey, our City Engineer, is on the line.
Christopher Leckel, Interim Public Works Director, joined by Matt Thompson, Wastewater Resources Manager, Roger Oxborough, Airport Manager, and Ditas Esperanza, Capital Projects Engineer.
Julie Dolan, Community Services Director, joined by Angelica Fortin, City Librarian, and Linda Plesha, Recreation Services Manager.
Ty Lewis, Chief of Police.
Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief, joined by Randy Harris, Fire Marshal Battalion Chief.
Ryan Cornell, Director of Administrative Services. With me tonight is Shannon Faust, Human Resources Manager.
Sarah Johnson-Rios, Assistant City Manager, joined by Melissa Martin-Boyer, City Clerk, Shauna Howenstein, Civic Engagement Coordinator, and Paul Sloan, Economic Development Manager.
Kimberly Hood, Interim City Attorney.
Tom Furchy, City Manager.
Very good, thank you. Prior to this open public meeting, we had an announced closed session meeting of the Paso Robles City Council. I will now ask the City Attorney if there was any reportable action from that meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council convened in closed session for two items. The first was public employment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 regarding the city manager position. There was no reportable action. The second was a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding the Pioneer Park property. The Council provided direction to the city's negotiators regarding the price in terms of payment for that property, but there was no reportable action.
Thank you. We'll move on with our agenda tonight. First up, we have our presentations, and first on the list is our COVID-19 community update. Mr. Harris.
Good evening, Mayor Martin, members of the council. Randy Harris, Battalion Chief Fire Marshal. Give me just 1 second while the presentation comes up, please.
Hang on 1 second, Randy.
No worries. And slide 2 once it comes up, Warren.
There you go.
Wonderful. Statewide ICU availability over the past 4 weeks has increased to 30.3%. The state now has over 3.5 million positive cases and 55,372 fatalities, which is an increase of 2,875 since your last report on March 2nd. Neighboring counties of Monterey, Santa Barbara, and Ventura has also seen a decrease in virus spread and moved into the red tier. All Southern California counties are also now in the red tier. Great news that earlier today it was announced from Sacramento that on June 15th, California will fully open its economy if 2 criteria are met. Vaccine supply is sufficient for Californians 16 and older who wish to be inoculated, and if hospitalization rates are stable and low. That means the road to recovery will dissolve and things will go back to somewhat normal as we know it with some modifications. Next slide, please. In San Luis Obispo County, we remain in the red tier with an adjusted case rate of 6.9, a positivity rate of 2.4%, and a health equity rate of 3.7%. Next slide, please. As of this morning, San Luis Obispo County had 20,606 total cases, including 253 fatalities, with 244 current active cases. The number of new cases increased by 491 since our last report, and active cases dropped by 19. Currently, San Luis Obispo County has 5 COVID-19 patients in the hospital. One of those patients is in the ICU. Next slide, please. According to the state vaccine website, 142,571 vaccines have been administered in San Luis Obispo County to date. 63,000 by CPH and 79,000 from other sources like hospitals, clinics, pharmacies, and employers. Next slide, please. San Luis County community members who are currently eligible for the COVID vaccine can sign up for the vaccine registry to get a first dose appointment at one of the San Luis Obispo County 3 vaccine clinics. Eligible residents only need to sign up once and will be contacted when an appointment is available. Appointments are available through the recoverslow.org website or by calling 805-543-2444. Next slide, please. San Luis Obispo County is continuing its Farm Worker Friday events. The Vaccine Task Force now discussing continuing these types of events for other sectors such as hospitality, industry, and seniors. These events will continue for the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. The city continues to support economic recovery with parklets and the Keep It Local program. Next slide, please. We continue to make residents aware of options for financial aid on our website and in the city's bi-monthly newsletter and on social media. Next slide, please. Community outreach continues in English and Spanish. While the county is the public information lead for this public health crisis, the city is continuing to spread information locally. Next slide, please. SLO County was able to move into the red tier in part because we continue to test at a high level. If you have symptoms or have been exposed to COVID-19, please get tested immediately. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions this evening.
Thank you. This is an information item. No action is required of the council. With that, we will go to the council for any questions on the report. Mr. Hammond?
None, Mr. Mayor, just better news on this. Very well done, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strong.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful news and we're moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Ms. Garcia?
Nothing further to add. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Mr. Gregory?
Thank you for the report, Randy.
And that was indeed a good report. We want to keep the pressure on this virus and make sure that we get back to life as normal as quickly as possible. And I'm really gratified to hear that we have a high level of testing and that such a high level of vaccination. That's obviously working to our benefit, and we need to keep up with our universal infection controls until all of this is wiped out. So even though I'm vaccinated, I still wear a mask most of the time, and I do try to socially distance, if only to remind other people that that's important if we're going to get out of this completely. I don't see anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this. So thank you again for that report. We appreciate it. We're going to move on to item number 2. This is our Emergency Services Annual Report by Mr. Stornetta.
Good evening, Mayor Martin, members of the council. Jonathan Stornetta, Fire Chief. Sorry for the delayed update on this report, but with everything going on, it can be expected these days. So if we go to the next page, please, Warren. Thank you. So currently the Emergency Services Department has 33 operational staff. This includes 30 firefighters and 3 operational battalion chiefs. On duty daily are 8 firefighters and 1 battalion chief. Our Community Risk Reduction Division consists of 1 fire marshal and 1 fire inspector, and our Administration Division consists of 1 administrative assistant and the fire chief. Currently, we respond out of 2 fire stations. Fire Station 1 is in the Public Safety Center at the corner of 9th and Park Street, and responding out of this fire station is 1 paramedic fire engine staffed with 3 firefighters and 1 paramedic squad staffed with 2 firefighters. Fire Station 2 is located on the east side of town out by Food for Less. This station responds with 1 paramedic fire engine that is staffed with 3 firefighters as well. We are currently working on site plans for the interim Fire Station 3 located on Union Road. This station will have 1 paramedic fire engine staffed with 3 firefighters once it's open and operational. As you see, the next slide, please. In the past 7 years, we've experienced an upward trend in the number of responses annually. The decline in responses in 2020 was a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw a decrease in tourism, many were sheltered at home, and all large public events that typically take place in our community were canceled. The nature of an emergency requires different responses for both EMS and fire. For EMS calls, the minimum response required is 4 personnel. The City Council adopted response standards that we arrive in all emergencies within 4 minutes or less 90% of the time. Fire responses require a minimum of 15 fires for a low hazard response, and per federal guidelines, all 15 firefighters should arrive at scene within 8 minutes. Our daily staffing is unable to meet this minimum requirement, so we are heavily relying on our neighboring fire departments to assist us in these instances. In 2020, our neighboring fire departments assisted us 107 times. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, the City Council's established goals to arrive at all emergencies in 4 minutes or less 90% of the time. Currently, we're only able to achieve this goal 56% of the time. As you can see on the graph here, our response times in the 90th percentile are 7 minutes and 44 seconds. The 3 largest contributors to our inability to meet response times are 1, geographical travel distances due to the size of our city being 19.9 square miles. Also, the current number of fire stations we have, and simultaneous calls. Simultaneous calls delay our responses since all units are already committed to a call, and the 911 caller must wait until that call is complete for our resources to become available, or we request assistance from our neighboring fire departments. Prior to implementation of a third response resource that was approved by City Council in 2018, we experienced over 700 simultaneous calls annually. Since implementation of the third response resource, we have reduced this number to 179 times last year. Over the past 3 years, City Council has taken a number of steps to minimize all these contributing factors. Next slide, please. Since City Council approved the implementation of the third response resource in 2018, we have seen a significant decrease in the number of times we have no response resources available for additional emergency calls. In 2017, this occurred 719 times, and in 2020, with the third response resource implemented, as you can see from the graph here, we reduced that to 179 times. Next slide, please. In regards to our EMS responses, one of the key EMS benchmarks for municipal and career fire departments is the National Fire Protection Association's NFPA 1710. NFPA 1710 standard establishes a 4 minutes or less response time for the arrival of first responders. This objective should be met 90% of the time, which is also concurrent in same concurrence with our city established goal. Cardiac arrest is the most significant life-threatening medical event in emergency medicine today and one of the most relevant standards affecting response times. A victim of cardiac arrest has mere minutes in which to receive life-saving care if there's to be any hope for resuscitation. Cardiac arrest survival rates fall by 7 to 10% for every passing minute between collapse and defibrillation. Consequently, the American Heart Association recommends cardiac defibrillation within 5 minutes of cardiac arrest. The sequence of events that lead to emergency cardiac care is graphically illustrated in the figure above. And additionally, this chart does illustrate cardiac arrest survival rates based upon our response times. Next slide, please. In 2020, the department responded to 81 structure fires. Property loss as a result of these structure fires totaled over $2.1 million. Similar to NFPA's EMS benchmarks, the NFPA has established standards for fire responses. On all fire calls, NFPA 1710 establishes that the first engine arrives at scene within 4 minutes or less. Again, this objective should be met 90% of the time. The standard also establishes that additional resources needed for fire suppression and low to medium hazard structure fires shall be at scene within 8 minutes. We achieved this 52% of the time in 2020. For high hazard structure fires, the NFPA standard establishes that all adequate resources should arrive at scene within 10 minutes. NFPA also establishes the number of firefighters needed to control a fire. So for instance, on low hazard structure fires, which is our residential structure fires, they require 15 firefighters. For medium hazard structure fires, such as apartment complexes, 28 firefighters, and high hazard structure fires, which are large commercial structures, 43 firefighters. Currently, we have 8 firefighters and 1 battalion chief on duty daily. So again, we are heavily relying on our neighboring fire departments to assist us in meeting the NFPA response standards for structure fires. In 2020, the average response time to receive sufficient resources for structure fires from our neighboring fire departments was 11 minutes and 9 seconds, 3 minutes and 9 seconds greater than the established standard. Next slide, please. The Community Risk Reduction Division serves the public by providing fire and life safety inspections, public safety education, community emergency response team or CERT training, new construction building plan review, fire inspections, and fire investigation services. These functions help prevent fires, enhance public safety in all buildings, and improve emergency responders' ability to manage an incident. By doing this, we help achieve a safe, vibrant, and economically sustainable community. Next slide, please. This slide identifies the benefits of adding the interim Fire Station 3 in the underserved northeast zone of the community. The picture on the left illustrates the current 1 to 4 minute response zones for Fire Station 1 and Fire Station 2. The legend on the far right illustrates the time in minutes to respond to the areas on the map. As you can see from the photo on the left, we have a large gap in response coverage in the northeast zone of the city. City Council recently approved the 3rd interim fire station on Union Road, which will assist in alleviating this gap in coverage. The picture on the right illustrates a significant improvement in the 1 to 4 minute response zone once Fire Station 3 is up and operational. The addition of Fire Station 3 will also assist in addressing some of the deficiencies noted in our recent ISO assessment. Next slide, please. This slide is a heat map that represents call density locations throughout the city. Due to the number of annual calls that our department responds to each year, we continue to have the 2 busiest fire stations in San Luis Obispo County. As represented on the map, our busiest areas are the downtown corridor, the north end, Niblett corridor, and southeast portions of the city. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates how we compare to the recommended staffing levels established by the International City Management Association and the National Fire Protection Agency. These numbers are based on the population of our city at 32,000. As you can see from the yellow line, the recommendation from the NFPA is 58 firefighters. The green line indicates recommended staffing levels from the ICMA, which is 49 firefighters, and the red line at the bottom shows our current staffing level of 30 firefighters. 9 additional firefighters were hired on a federal grant in the last 3 years to assist with implementing the 3rd response resource, staffing the 3rd fire station, and allowing us to have 30 firefighters today. By City Council accepting these firefighter grants, we saved the community over $2.8 million. Next slide, please. Based on historical data, we anticipate continual growth of annual responses at 3.8% each year for the next 10 years. This projection does not include any future development or population increases. Development and population growth will significantly impact emergency services. The column on the far right, outlined in yellow, accounts for the impacts of the projects currently in the city's project pipeline. Based on an annual response increase of 3.8% and the completion of those projects currently in the city's project pipeline, we expect to see an increase in annual responses of 81%. This slide also illustrates the number of firefighters needed to keep pace with those increases in service demands. And these increase in firefighters is also shown in my 10-year staffing analysis that most of the City Council has seen already. Next slide, please. In 2020, the Emergency Services Department secured over $1.5 million in grants. With the support of City Council, acceptance of these grants contributed to making this a safer place for our community members and visitors. These grants allowed us to add 3 firefighters that were 100% funded for 3 years, allowed us to reduce the hazardous fuels associated with wildland fires on the west side and the riverbed corridor, and allowed us to purchase a fire prevention trailer to be utilized for public education throughout San Luis Obispo County. Our department is extremely grateful for the steps that the City Council has taken to help make our community more safe. Next slide, please. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Once again, this is an information presentation, no action required. Well, let's go to the council for questions and comments. Mr. Hammond.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jonathan, even with, we get a third station on board with 3 firefighters on duty, that's a total of 9, which we would never make 15 to a structure fire. We're always going to have to rely on automatic aid and mutual aid. And so I don't see any other city making that capability, or do they? In other words, Tascadero and our other neighboring sister cities, they're all going to be relying on us as well for mutual and automatic aid.
You are correct, Mr. Hammond. The only city currently that's able to meet the NFPA standards is San Luis Obispo at this point.
Very good. Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Strong?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Jonathan, I'm wondering, how much do we have any figures on how much we paid for mutual aid that we received and how much we received for mutual aid we provided?
We can provide you the numbers for, and I'll be happy to provide those to you offline. I don't have them right now, but yes, we are reimbursed fully for benefits and overtime, and as well as overtime coverage in the city while we're out on mutual aid incidents. And it's very rarely that we are billed in the city for mutual aid unless we utilize special equipment like aircraft and things like that. So we have a pretty good partnership and agreement with CAL FIRE that we assist each other when needed.
Okay, and so actually that's a plus then for us at the moment.
Very much so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
No, sir, no further questions. I just want to say thank you for all the information. I think it's important for us to see your report and for the community. Thank you so much.
And Councilman Gregory.
Thank you for the report, Jonathan. No questions.
Thanks, Jonathan. I have no questions, and I see no one lined up from the public to comment. So again, we appreciate the report and all the service done for the people of Paso Robles. Thank you so much. Moving on now, we have several proclamations this evening. Our first proclamation is for CAPSLO, Month of the Child. I believe we have Rochelle Bolle with us tonight. Is that true? Rochelle, are you with us? Well, perhaps you'll sign on in a second. We do have a proclamation, which I'll be happy to read now. April 2021, Month of the Child, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the Paso Robles City Council recognizes that every moment in a child's life is an opportunity for that child to learn, that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school and in life, and that all children need caring and loving adults in their lives. And whereas April, Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, marks a time to recognize that our community's children are precious assets, that the quality of their early years is our collective responsibility, and that we commit ourselves to ensuring that each and every child has access to a high-quality early environment at home, at childcare, at school, and in the community that will promote their optimal growth and development. And whereas, in solidarity of the We Are the Care initiative, we as a community of partners and leaders envision a San Luis Obispo County where all families can find and afford quality care for their children, and where child care professionals are valued for their critical role in building a solid foundation for children and families to thrive in the world. And whereas a variety of virtual and safe outdoor activities hosted at www.sanluischildcare.org honoring Month of the Child will provide an opportunity to acknowledge the dedication of individuals and organizations improving and enriching the lives of children and youth in our county. and raise the awareness of the community, employers, and elected officials of the need to improve the quality, availability, affordability, and accessibility of programs supporting children. Whereas Friday, April the 2nd, 2021 commemorates hashtag Wear Blue for Kids Day, raising awareness for Child Abuse Prevention Month and recognizing that each of us has a role to play in ensuring the safety of our children as we pledge our support for strategies that strengthen families and protect our young ones. And whereas in this caring and connected county, we will, including and beyond the month of the child, continue to dedicate our efforts and our resources to investing in our community's future by investing in and supporting some of the most vulnerable among us, our community's children and youth. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Paso Robles and speaking on behalf of all of our citizens and our city council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as the month of the child and as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Is Ms. Bowley with us now?
Hi, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me now?
We can. Good evening. I hope you heard that proclamation and we would welcome your comments.
I did, and thank you so much. I will start off by just saying real quick, I am Rochelle Bollay. I am the coordinator for our county's local child care planning council. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for proclaiming April as Month of the Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month so that we have the opportunity to celebrate our community's 54,000 children and their families as they live, grow, and play every single day here in our county. And we hope that you'll join us in some of our online virtual events that we have. Normally, we host the Children's Day in the Plaza in downtown SLO and then a whole bunch of other events. But this year, in an effort to keep our children and families and communities safe, we're shifting to a month-long celebration where it'll be showcased online, as well as we'll have many different drive-through events where families can go and get some practical resources and materials as well as participate in online music events and scavenger hunts, and just a way to be able to celebrate all of the great community resources that we have. We also invite you to help us celebrate and advocate for our littlest learners. April is only one of 12 months, and we have a lot of other initiatives that are going on. Right now, we're focused a lot on an initiative called We Are the Care that looks at new ways of engaging our local government, the child care workforce, and building bridges with the business community. And so we know now more than ever that children and families need our support and our attention, and we know that sustaining child care is the backbone of our economic vitality. So we just want to encourage you and thank you for all the work that you have done, but encourage you to also keep children in your hearts and minds as you commit and think about what we can do in building our future and the collective responsibility we have to demonstrate daily to our youth and our children that they're our highest priority. So again, thank you so much, and I just look forward to another great year creating this connected community for our children and families. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for being with us tonight. We move on now to item number 4 on our agenda, National Telecommunicators Week proclamation. I understand our police chief will be here to make comments when we're finished with the presentation. National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April the 11th through the 17th. Whereas the professional public safety dispatcher plays a vital role in the protection of human life and property and the preservation of law and order guaranteed by our Constitution. And whereas the incidents of crime, alcohol and drug abuse, suicides, medical and fire emergencies, broken homes, and child and elderly abuse are a daily occurrence. And whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and the public is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Paso Robles Police Department Communications Center, whereas the professional public safety dispatcher is the vital link between the citizen or victim and the public safety provider who may apprehend a criminal, save their worldly possession from fire or theft, or save their life or the life of a loved one. And whereas the city of Paso Robles is fortunate to have a wonderful group of dedicated and trained professional public safety dispatchers, and whereas these professionals need and deserve the informed support of our community to continually maintain and improve the quality of public safety dispatching services. And whereas the United States Congress has set aside the second full week in April to recognize telecommunicators and their crucial role in the protection of life and property. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, as mayor of the city of Paso Robles, do hereby proclaim the week of April the 11th through the 17th, 2021, as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the city of Paso Robles, and wish to commend the dedication and contribution of our professional public safety dispatchers to the overall delivery of public safety services. Chief Lewis, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, it's an honor to be able to say a few words about our wonderful dispatchers that we have here in Paso Robles. This is the second year where we haven't been able to honor them the way we typically do because of the COVID-19 crisis. Nonetheless, it's an opportunity for us and for me to be able to tell the community, as you eloquently did with the proclamation you just read, what these dispatchers mean to our community, what they mean to our police officers. It can't be understated. They are true first responders, as was illustrated this past year. Right after a month and a half after last year's proclamation was read, we had the active shooter event in our community, and that really underscored and highlighted the working relationship that our dispatchers have with our community, with our police officers, and how important they are to the safety of our community. And I can't underscore that enough. It's a very tough job. They oftentimes hear the distress, they hear the calls for help, but they often don't get the closure that a lot of our police officers do. They worry nonstop. They work long hours. They work through birthdays. They work through holidays. And they work under extremely stressful conditions. So it's my pleasure and my honor to be able to tell the community that I think that we have the finest public safety dispatchers in the county working for us, and I'm proud to lead them on a daily basis. So again, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the recognition tonight and the opportunity to really be able to extol their wonderful, wonderful services that they provide our community. So at home, if you're listening, give our dispatchers a hand. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you to all the dispatchers for everything they do to utilize the communications network that holds these emergency services together when they're responding to citizen needs. We do appreciate that. Next up, we have a proclamation for National Library Week, and I believe our city librarian, Angelica Fortin, is with us tonight to speak afterwards, so let me get to this. National Library Week, April 2021, whereas the Paso Robles City Council recognizes that a global pandemic has forced libraries across the country to severely modify their services, whereas the Paso Robles City Library has risen to the occasion with innovative ways to serve the community during this time of crisis, such as creating a virtual story time and craft kits, enabling youngsters and their family to enjoy a popular library program while they shelter at home. Whereas library staff began offering safe in-person services as soon as guidelines permitted, making them one of the first libraries in the state to offer in-person service during this time. Whereas the Paso Robles City Library has initiated a vigorous outreach campaign to inform community members of and assist them in accessing the virtual services, digital content, internet access, and reading material they need now more than ever. Whereas the Paso Robles City Library has continued to adapt and engage community partners to develop a plan of service that will increase virtual and physical accessibility to the library as pandemic restrictions allow for increased services. And whereas since the founding of the Carnegie Library in the city of El Paso Robles in 1908, city leaders have recognized that libraries are a convening place that build community for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status, by offering services and educational resources that transform lives and strengthen communities. And whereas the Paso Robles City Library has continued to serve as a cornerstone of democracy in the heart of the city's downtown throughout the pandemic, and will do so into the future. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire city council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 4th through the 10th, 2021, as National Library Week. I encourage Paso Roblans to celebrate by showing appreciation for the many innovative ways libraries, librarians, library workers, and volunteers continue to empower their communities by providing free access to information and guiding them to the best information resources. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Angelica Fortin.
Thank you, Mayor Martin and City Council. Today happens to be National Library Workers' Day, and I enthusiastically accept this honor on behalf of our fabulous library staff and our volunteers. We are all proud to serve and look forward to continue serving through the pandemic and beyond. The library continues to be open for grab-and-go service, and I invite our community to come in to check out, browse our collections, access the internet and computers, and to enjoy our newly available outdoor patio seating. Thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you, and thank you for all you do and all your staff does and all of our volunteers and workers. It truly is a city library that helps build community. We do appreciate that. Next up, we have a special proclamation for our city manager, our outgoing city manager, Mr. Thomas Frucci. And I can only assume that Mr. Frucci is on hand to comment after this as he sits through all of our meetings, guiding us and helping us with his wisdom. So let's get right to this. Proclamation for Thomas Frucci, serving the city of Paso Robles from 2016 to 2021. Whereas Mr. Frucci has worked diligently throughout his career in both the public and private sectors. Whereas Mr. Frucci has conscientiously served as the city manager of Paso Robles since his appointment to the position in 2016. Whereas Mr. Frucci has an amazing work ethic and has worked closely with council to complete many projects and goals, including approval of Olson, South Chandler, Beechwood, and Gateway specific plans, advancing riverbed cleanup efforts to protect public safety, and demonstrating the need for the community to pass Measure J20 sales tax to maintain essential city services. Whereas Mr. Frucci has overseen many changes and projects, including advancing economic development priorities and setting the city, setting the city on a path of fiscal sustainability, maintaining healthy reserves, even though of the recent pandemic effects. And whereas Mr. Frucci has provided leadership for the city council in the midst of a pandemic, an active shooter incident, and the river fire all within the last year. And whereas Mr. Frucci has personally conducted an oath of office for each city employee when they start or are promoted, instilling the importance of their commitment to public service to the community. And whereas Mr. Frucci has worked diligently to leave the city of Paso Robles far greater and better in many ways than it was when he took his oath of office in 2016. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Stephen W. Martin, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor and speaking on behalf of the entire city council, do hereby extend our gratitude to Thomas Frucci on the special occasion of the end of his tenure as city manager and for his 5 years of dedicated service to the city of Paso Robles. Mr. Frucci, it is your microphone, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much. That was a very gracious proclamation. I really appreciate it. I've worked in several cities, as you know, and there are several hallmarks of this community. One is the city council. I have seldom worked with a council where 5 members have had significantly different perspectives, yet all have been totally committed to serving the entire community, not just their constituency, and coming to agreement with the other council members, coming to consensus to make sure the decisions were ones that all could support. That sounds like it should be normal. It is by no means normal. And I applaud this council. You are truly to be congratulated and honored by the community. I also would like to applaud staff. I've worked with many, many staff in the cities in which I've worked and in the private sector. And there are several hallmarks of this staff that are unique. Number one is for a city of 31,000 people, we have only about 180 staff on duty at any point in time. That's incredibly lean. And yet people continue to come to work day after day, do more than their fair share. There are no complaints. There's just dedication to doing what's best for the community. One of the things I noticed right away from when I came here is that if one person out of those 180 asked for help, there were 179 people saying, how can I help? That also is very rare. And then finally, this community, it's an amazing community. There are so many people who stand up just to serve. They don't ask for anything in return. They volunteer their time, they donate their money, they donate their expertise. That's what makes community great. That's what makes this community one that can survive the challenges, Mr. Mayor, that you talked about that we faced over the past year. And we certainly have been tested. It would have been easy for it to be something that weakened our community and weakened the council and weakened the staff. And I can say that in almost every possible way, we have emerged from this past year stronger than we went into it. And that's another just strength and hallmark of this community. It is in some just been my extreme honor to be able to work with you and serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frucci, and we certainly do appreciate the service that you've rendered to our community, to our constituents, and to our council, as well as our staff. It is deeply appreciated. And we will have the opportunity to speak more of this, but I would like to take this opportunity to go around the council and ask for the thoughts of our individual council members. Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom, it comes time to say thank you for the last 5 years. I recall when we came together that you committed for 5 years. You gave us 5 years of great service, great work. Your leadership in running our city was exceptional. And along with all the personal work ethic that you exhibited, I mean, tireless hours that you put in long after the regular 5 o'clock kind of a time frame. Again, I had you at Rotary last week. You mentioned that in your retirement, you would prefer and hope to work and devote your future efforts to restoring democracy and what's happened in the last few years. I think that is exceptional as well. It's a great goal. I hope that I can actually help you with that. But again, been an honor working with you. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Mr. Strong.
Yes, Mr. Frucci, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you. And the work ethic that you demonstrated and the example that you set for everyone in the city was outstanding. It was something that was very difficult for anyone else to live up to. It was excellent. The knowledge you brought, especially regarding economic development and how to take advantage of the resources we had and to find and establish new resources that we could use in order to further and wish you nothing but the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Frucci, thank you so much. When I first got elected on city council, you came up to me and you said, I can help you with whatever you need. And I really did appreciate that. And you really kept your word. We met and we talked, and just your leadership and all your guidance has really helped me. I really appreciate everything that you have done for me personally to learn how a city is supposed to run, and all your guidance. I really appreciate that. And just wish the best of luck to you and your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, Tom, I'd like to say thank you for everything you've done. I know you're going to get kind of lonely after getting phone calls every day from me, but I'd really like to recognize your incredible work ethic. No stones unturned. Every time we had an issue or a problem, you were there to encourage and get staff to jump on board and help us with all the issues that face us on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis at the city. It's just been a pleasure to see your skill level in keeping our finances straight, keeping us in the black, being preventative for future problems, and looking forward into the future to achieve the very goals that we've all set forth for you and the community. And it's been a pleasure, and I stand tall with you and share. I'm very proud of knowing you and everything you've done for our city. Thank you.
And Tom, I want to add that 5 years ago, when we were transitioning into your time period with the city of Paso Robles, and the agency that was doing recruiting for us at that time asked me, well, what do you want in a city manager? And I said, I want somebody who will not say it's impossible. We can't do that. And I have to say, in the 5 years that I've known you, I've never heard you say to me, it's impossible. Now, sometimes you said, are you sure you want to do that? And we've had a nice chat about that. But you have always been a can-do person. who has been able to marshal the resources necessary to achieve the goals that the council set forth. And sometimes we gave you some pretty hard, difficult jobs, and you never shirked. You faced them all head on, and you walked right into the lion's den every time. And that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of integrity. And you are not an ivory tower city manager. Every time we had something going on in the community, whether it was a march downtown or a fire in the riverbed or whatever it was, you were there. You were there with our employees. You were there with our citizens. You were there in the crowd, making sure that whatever you could do would be done in that situation. And I think your commitment to that and to making sure that you stayed in touch with people who called and asked questions and asked for help is very, very commendable. And as far as me personally, I'm now in my 6th year or so in this tenure as mayor, and I'd been mayor once long ago, but I still had a lot to learn. And many is the time when I came to you saying, I have an idea, but I'm not exactly sure how I should deal with this. And you always gave me sensible alternatives, and you enabled me to find the type of decisions that I needed to make to be comfortable for myself and for the people that I represent. And that is priceless. And last but not least, I tried to attend every swearing in during the last 5 years. I don't think I missed many, because I wanted to hear that last line that you administered in the oath that said, we pledge to leave the city better than when we found it. And that's my aim too. And I know that was your aim. And I just want you to know from my perspective, you succeeded. You succeeded very well. And with that, I speak for the council and the entire community when I say thank you for these past 5 years, for the tough times, for the good times. I wish you nothing but the best in the future, and I hope we can stay in touch. And with that, I want the public to know that they are welcome to join us to do a little drive-through send-off for Mr. Frucci. That's going to be April the 16th, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. in the City Hall Library parking lot. You'll be able to drive up, offer your thanks, offer your well wishes, and you won't have any problem finding the site because there are going to be a lot of balloons out there. So, Tom, thank you again. And with that, unless you have other thoughts, we are going to move on now.
No, sir, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Item number 7. We have a presentation on substandard rental housing by Lindsay Holden of the San Luis Obispo Tribune. Lindsay, are you with us?
I am. Thank you so much, Mayor Martin.
I understand you have someone with you, and I hope I pronounced this correctly. Eustolia Garcia, is that correct?
Yes, yeah. Eustolia, I'm going to share a few slides with you guys, and then Eustolia is going to, she works with the Promotores Collaborative, and they work directly with renters in Paso Robles, and she's going to share some experiences that she's gotten during her work. She'll be sharing in Spanish, and an interpreter will be sharing what she's saying.
Thank you both for being with us, and the microphone is yours.
Awesome. Okay, it looks like the slides are up because I have them on my computer too. But yeah, so for people who are listening who may not know who I am, my name is Lindsay Holden. I'm a reporter for the San Luis Obispo Tribune, and I spent the last year doing a project on substandard rental housing throughout San Luis Obispo County and how that impacts low-wage workers throughout the county, and it's called Substandard of Living, as you can see on the screen. And I'm going to share today some of my takeaways that, especially how Paso is impacted by an unhealthy rental housing problem. So thank you, Mayor Martin and the council for having me. And yeah, if you can move to the next slide, that'd be great. Sorry, do I need to click something? Oh, there we go, perfect. Okay. So I wanted to start out, these are some screenshots from the city's most recent housing element update. And on the left, the city says maintaining and improving housing quality is an important goal. And on the other side, the city also says there are no substandard housing units in Paso, which staff seems to define as open code cases involving units that have been red tagged or deemed so dangerous they're uninhabitable. However, my reporting shows that this statement that shows that this statement is misleading I don't see any evidence the city conducted outreach to areas most likely to have poor housing. And the definition of substandard housing relies on residents to have complained and to have experienced conditions so bad they can no longer live in their housing. There doesn't seem to be any room for conditions that are poor but not red tag level. My own investigation into poor housing throughout the county, including in Paso, proves this statement that the city has no substandard units to be incorrect. It also shows the city's code enforcement system is barely functional in terms of its ability to adequately protect renters who are frequently too scared to complain and face officials who don't address their concerns and place responsibility for fixing their poor housing conditions back onto them. This presentation will show what I learned in my reporting and what needs to change to address the city's goals of maintaining quality housing. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share a little bit about my investigation. I received a fellowship from the USC Annenberg Center for Health Journalism to investigate poor rental housing throughout the county. And my editors and I worked with the Promotorious Collaborative of San Luis Obispo County, which is a group of volunteer health educators who help connect the Hispanic community to local resources. In pre-COVID times, as you maybe can tell from this photo, we canvassed door to door in working class neighborhoods where residents primarily speak Spanish or indigenous languages. And the survey, part of our survey you can see on this slide. We also shared the survey online, and through both of those efforts, we were able to reach nearly 200 renters throughout the county. And we reached out personally to renters in Paso Robles, San Miguel, Oceano, and Grover Beach, and a little bit in Napomo. We also held 3 focus groups, one for service providers in San Luis Obispo, and 2 for renters, one in Oceano and one in Paso Robles. Next slide, please. So during our surveying work, about 1/3 of the people we talked to are Paso Robles tenants, and some of the data that we collected during our surveying process is shown in this slide. So overall, renters reported dealing with a host of issues that the state considers to be substandard, including pests, mostly cockroaches, broken windows, mold, plumbing problems, and more, as you can see on this one side of the slide. And about 1/3 of the people that we talked to said they had problems in their apartments their landlord hadn't fixed. And so we asked tenants how they deal with problems in their housing. And many of the people, they could respond in multiple ways. So some of their problems their landlord had fixed. Some of their problems were not fixed. Some of the problems they fixed themselves. Some continue to live with their problems. Obviously, we would want to see 100% of their problems being fixed. And some people also said they had to wait a long time to get things fixed. Also, interestingly, only about 4% of the people we surveyed said they reported any issues to the city or to the county. And people cited fearing retaliation from their landlords, potentially being evicted, concerns about their immigration status. It's illegal in California to retaliate against people based on reporting poor housing conditions or on their immigration status, but many people don't know that. And there are also language barriers that make tenants more vulnerable to poor rental housing and prevent them from sharing problems. Next slide, please. Sorry, oh, there we go, perfect. So a big reason people don't report problems has to do with code enforcement. For people who are listening who may not be familiar with how code enforcement and rental housing interact, renting a property is a business. The state has rules for conditions landlords must provide to tenants. Cities and counties are charged with enforcing these rules. Tenants can contact the city or the county to complain about problems in their housing. And these are a variety of problems they can complain about, broken windows, plumbing, et cetera. These don't have to be problems that are so catastrophic that they can't live in their housing. As part of my project, I requested 5 years of code enforcement complaints from all 7 cities and the county. In Paso Robles, I received 18. I don't think this number is so low because people don't have problems in their housing. I think I have very strong suspicion based on my reporting that this is because they're not reporting problems. This is partially because of code enforcement's response. Over and over in the complaints I received in my records request, I saw the city deem code violations, quote unquote, tenant landlord issues and refer them to California Rural Legal Assistance, which is a legal aid group. This allows the city to shirk its responsibility to tenants and lets landlords off the hook. And this also creates a reputation that the city doesn't do code enforcement, which is something that I heard from several people when I was reporting these stories. Next slide, please. And then this whole, all of the things I've just talked about is how you end up with Grandview, which I think everyone here is probably familiar with. And this kind of shows some of the conditions Grandview tenants were dealing with. The city was aware of poor conditions at Grandview as early as 2017 when residents began complaining. Staff told me during the reporting process that the owners were making minor fixes at the request of the city, but more needed to be done, and the city was aware of that. The city never fined the owners and only cited them after tenants filed a lawsuit against them in 2019 as a result of the conditions you can see on the slide. Staff told me that tenants and legal aid were part of a, quote, team effort to compel owners to improve housing, that tenants had more power than the city to fix their housing problems. This is simply not true based on the reporting that I've done. Tenants I talked to are terrified of losing their housing, which is eventually what happened to the Grandview tenants when they were all evicted after the owner decided to sell the complex. In its housing element, the city seems to view Grandview as a success, and I was told as much during my reporting. I can assure you the tenants who live there don't see things that way, and my reporting indicates the situation was actually an utter failure of code enforcement to protect tenants. Next slide, please. So the good news is there are many things the city can do to improve conditions for tenants. On the left of this slide, the city's website currently says, my landlord will not make necessary repairs. What can I do? And the response is, the city does not provide legal advice for renters. You'll have to contact a private attorney. This basically says the city doesn't do code enforcement, and it is the city's responsibility to help renters dealing with poor housing conditions. Right now, the city doesn't have a code enforcement department. There's only one part-time officer. This could automatically be improved by potentially hiring more code enforcement officers and also creating a process for tenants that's clear, that lays out their rights and the city's responsibilities. Also, a bilingual code enforcement officer would be incredible. On the other side of this slide shows a diamond, which I made using research from my project, and it shows the different strategies that help keep renters safe and housed. The state has done a good job tackling rent stabilization and eviction protections in a new law that went into effect last year. But cities can do a lot in terms of renters' rights education and habitability inspections and proactive code enforcement. I outlined some code enforcement steps previously, but Jimmy Paulding, an Arroyo Grande council member, is in the process of forming a task force to explore potentially using Federal American Recovery Act funds to create a regional renter education program that could help empower tenants. As you can see, there are so many solutions to help renters struggling with poor conditions in Paso Robles. And I'd love to answer questions. I just would love to give Eustolia a little bit of time to share some of the experiences that she's heard. So I know the interpreter is available. So Eustolia, if you could go ahead, that would be great.
Eustolia, si me puede decir, si puede empezar, adelante. Eso, estaría bien que usted nos dijera lo que tiene que decirnos.
¿Sí me escucha?
Yes.
Sí, la
¿Sí me
escucho ahora,
escucha?
señora.
Yo les quiero dar gracias a ellos. Bueno.
Sí, dígame, señora.
Sí, yo le quiero dar gracias a ellos porque sí está funcionando, todo lo que ella está diciendo es verdad. Lindsay me invitó a hacer un video hace un año y yo lo publiqué en mi Facebook y mucha gente lo está compartiendo, lo está escuchando y ellos me dicen,
¿Me permite un momentito, por favor, señora?
Sí.
Yes. First of all, I wanna thank you for what you're doing and what Lindsay is doing. She invited me to do a video about a year ago, and everything she has talked about is true. I was able to post the video on Facebook, and there has been a lot of response.
La gente lo está escuchando y está, ¿cómo se dice? Lo están escuchando y lo están, sí lo necesitan, y muchos de ellos dicen, pues, nosotros sabemos que estamos en malas condiciones en la renta, pero no podemos movernos para acá, para allá, porque no hay casas de renta. Aunque quieramos salir del lugar malo donde estamos. Sí.
Si me permite un momentito, por favor. Even if we want to get out of the place where we're living right now, because it's not a great place to live, there's not enough rental homes where we can move, and we are very. We are getting a lot of information for what we can see in this video at Facebook.
Pasa que la gente, sí, la gente vive en malas condiciones, pero no hay casa suficiente para que ellos se muevan a otro lugar cuando un lugar de renta está en malas condiciones.
Okay, people live in very bad conditions, but there's not good homes or good places to move, so they can go move to a better place to live.
Es que aquí, por el trabajo, mucha gente están aquí, pueden tener mucho trabajo en el campo y se llenó mucho en Paso Robles. Y la gente ya no encuentra renta, ya no hay casa como donde ellos pueden vivir.
Okay, it's because a lot of people came to work around Paso Robles, and a lot of people, it is too many people for what is available to rent in the area.
Yo mi sugerencia es que si pudieran hacer como más habitaciones como para trabajadores del campo. Son la gente que nos da de comer, nos ayudan a trabajar, y pues yo lo siento mucho, yo quiero muchos a ellos porque ellos de verdad vienen a trabajar y ayudar.
I love these people because they come here to work. What I wish for is that you can create more places to live, more housing for these people that come to work so hard in the fields.
También porque las personas que vienen de México necesitan mucha ayuda como para buscar una renta, y a veces se amontonan, viven muchos juntos, y también por eso como el baño, las cocinas, se echan a perder rápido porque viven mucho de montón porque no hay renta.
Yes, since there's not a lot of places to rent, or homes to rent, or apartments to rent, people get all together at just one place, and that's why everything deteriorates right away, like the kitchens and the bathrooms, and that's where it is needed for more available housing.
Por eso los dueños se enojan porque pues en un mes, 2 meses ya se descompuso el baño, porque en una casa vive 2, 3 familias con niños o 8 personas solteros, y cada rato van al baño, tienen que bañarse y así, y pues la casa pues no da suficiente ayuda pues.
That's why the owners are not so happy about this. It's because 2 or 3 families move into the same home, and of course they have to use the same kitchen, the same bathroom, and everything gets damaged and deteriorated. And it's because they all have to live together and use it a lot.
Es todo lo que yo quiero decir y muchas gracias por escuchar mi palabra y quiero también pues decir que nos ayuden también como nosotros que pues no tenemos, ¿cómo se dice? Crédito o seguro, licencia, todo eso, no llegamos a eso y por eso también no podemos conseguir renta tan fácil porque es casi lo que piden para moverse a otra renta.
Yes, I just want to say that thank you very much for listening to me, and that we will appreciate any help that we can get since we don't have credit, we don't have insurance, we don't have licenses, and we need all the help we can get to get. And if this is happening, it's not easy to find a rental.
Es todo y le quiero agradecer, muchas felicidades y que esté bien el Tom porque me gustó cómo está trabajando y es todo. Muchas gracias por escucharme.
The interpreter requires verification. One moment, please. Que esté bien. ¿Quién dijo el Tom? ¿Qué quiere decir?
Tom, ¿cómo se llama? El alcalde que habló primero.
Okay. Okay, I just want to thank all of you for listening to me, and especially Tom for all the help we have been getting from him.
Gracias.
Gracias, Justolia.
Sí.
So yeah, thank you so much to Justolia. Justolia lives in Paso Robles. She does amazing work here. Her work is so important because she speaks Spanish and also Mixteco, which is a language indigenous to regions of Mexico that a growing number of people in the North County are speaking now. So yeah, I'd be happy to take your questions.
Sí, gracias a ustedes también y que Dios nos bendiga.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justolia.
Muchas gracias, Justolia.
Gracias, Lice.
So yeah, council members or if anyone would like to ask questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you for that presentation. I understand that our Mr. Frace has some corollary information, but first, I want to remind folks this is a presentation. There'll be no action taken by the council tonight, but we will go around and ask for council questions and comments, starting with Councilman Hannan.
No comment, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strong.
Well, I'm happy to comment because I had a very nice interview with Lindsay. Roy Grant, Councilman Jimmy Paulding is my alternate on some of my committees, and my fellow regional representative on the Central Coast Lower Income Rental Task Force created by the state of California. So the two of us worked on a number of projects and have brought significant money to each of our jurisdictions to plan for some lower income housing. And the problem, one of the problems in our entire region is the federal government and the state have not created enough Section 8 housing vouchers for the people that need them. And so we have long, hundreds of people on lists waiting for some kind of rental help because they can't afford the rates of the rents that have escalated in our area because of our economy and the desirability of our location. Fortunately, in Paso Robles, a positive. There are some negatives that Lindsay pointed out very, very dramatically. But one of the positives, I think, that should be mentioned is that we are the only jurisdiction in this entire county that actually met the state's lower income housing requirements under the RENA process. So in the last 10 years, we were the only one that actually produced enough new housing. And we are already on track to fully meet our next requirement for the current 10-year period. So that's new housing units. Do we have to do more with existing housing units? Yes, but within budget that we just have difficulty getting through the state's process because we are a general law city and not a charter city, which makes a big difference in how much we can money we can get to do this. It's a problem, but at least many of us are working on it, and I'm working very diligently with Councilman Cawley from Arroyo Grande on the same problem. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you, Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I also have spoken to Ms. Lindsay and have discussed the same issue of the substandard housing. And I have also gone to families that are living in one resident. And I personally know that this is a problem in our community, but we are all aware that there is not enough housing here, and we're working on that, on getting more housing in our area. But I do also want to say that I talked to the city council member, Mr. Paulding, and he had an idea of a coalition and an idea on how to work on this problem. And I was hoping we could discuss that further, of course, at another time. But if we can discuss the idea of joining forces in the Central Coast to help this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
Thank you, Lindsay, for bringing this to our attention. And I really want to let the public know that we are trying to help get more housing here. And we have some facilities that have done a great job for many families, like the Oak Park Project. We have over 300 families living in affordable housing, and another project off of Crescent Road. And the more effort we put towards that, it'll help with a lot of these dramatic problems that are being presented tonight. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had a question, Lindsay. I was confused when you were giving your presentation. You said when you went door to door, you reached 200 residents, but I couldn't hear whether that was countywide or citywide.
That was countywide.
Okay.
But about a third of those tenants are in Paso Robles. So we did reach a significant number here.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. And I think the conversation here, you know, there are two different housing conversations I'm hearing. One is housing supply, and the other is the condition of existing housing. And that's where substandard housing comes in. And I think that's where your comments and the comments of the people that you talk to are appropriate to issues such as what resources are dedicated to code enforcement, how does that system work? And I think it's one of those things that probably people don't understand really well about the city, how it works and if it works, and certainly bears some future discussion. But those are the very clear messages I got from your presentation, was that, you know, the existence of substandard housing and how the city addresses that. So I appreciate you bringing that to us tonight. Any other comments before I call on a staff member who's going to give us some information? Lindsay?
No, that's all. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to do this presentation. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Thank you for being here. We do have one person waiting for public comment, but I want to get the full report out before we go to that. So, Mr. Frace, are you standing by?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple comments really quick. First of all, we've been watching Lindsay's reporting very closely. We worked with her quite closely during the whole Grandview process, and she's been very helpful. She's done a lot of really good research, and bringing this to everybody's attention, I think, is very important. And you know, her comments, you know, we will, you know, take those to heart and, you know, definitely review and see what we can do better. Just a little bit of, you know, background on the Grandview case, since that has been kind of one of the high-profile cases. This is a picture of what it used to look like. Grandview was a kind of 1950s era walk-up apartment building. Over the years, it had continued to decline due to a lack of maintenance. There were some very unique issues with the landlord that really created a very sad condition. But the building, the entire site, the interiors of the units really deteriorated into awful conditions. The city was aware of the condition. We were working on it, but I think what kind of this case at least illustrated was that where a landlord really did not want to cooperate with the process, it just ends up being a very lengthy and kind of painful process. I think the good news is the Grandview was purchased by a new party. It has been restored. These are the photos today of what the Grandview looks like. So we basically have 54 market rate apartments that are going back into our housing supply. The new buyer has done an excellent job restoring it back to probably what it looked like originally back in the 1950s. They preserved the oak trees, improved the landscaping. All the units are totally rehabbed on the interior, new window coverings, new kitchens, new floor coverings, totally redone. So the site, is like night and day to what it used to be like. They've really done a great job. New lighting, new trash enclosures, new mailboxes, everything's been redone along with new parking for the site. So it is being leased right now. We're still finishing up some of the final improvements on the site, but people are beginning to move in, and this is coming back into our housing supply, which is really good news. And I think that's, kind of two parts of this. One is the condition of existing housing, and our building department tries to be as proactive as possible when responding to complaints. We typically respond to inspection requests within 24 hours. We'll take inspection requests by phone, email, or by our website where we have a special complaint form. So when we do get the complaints, we are proactive about them. But as Lindsay's pointed out, most of these housing issues aren't ever reported to the city, so the city's not typically in a position to even know about them. I think overall, the issue of housing supply contributes to the issue of the condition where there's just a lack of competition for rental housing. But the city has been very proactive in terms of trying to increase our housing supply. As Councilman Strong pointed out, we did meet our regional housing needs, which is our affordable housing targets that the state gives to all the cities within the county. We were the only city to meet our targets in the last cycle. We have a lot of new apartment buildings beyond the Grandview that are in the pipeline. There's a 200-unit apartment project on Creston Road that will break ground hopefully later this summer. The ADUs, which are the accessory dwelling units, the state's identified that as a really good supply of rental housing. We're actually going to probably build more ADUs this year than we will single-family residential units. So ADUs, we're encouraging those. We're seeing a lot of those move along. And then our partnership with the Housing Authority has been really important as well. As Councilman Gregory pointed out, we cooperated on the rebuilding of the Oak Park housing complex, 300 brand new housing units. We're working with the Housing Authority on an affordable senior housing project next to Kohl's and Walmart. And there's some other potential projects and partnerships with the Housing Authority. So I think, as the mayor pointed out, there's a lot of facets to this issue. We're trying to be as proactive in addressing all those angles as possible. That'll conclude staff's report.
Thank you. Again, this is presentation, no action, but I'll go around and see if council has any questions of Mr. Fraze. Councilman Hammond?
No, Mr. Mayor. Great report by Warren. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strong?
Yes, and I'm glad that everybody referred to the Housing Authority because it has been extremely proactive, especially over the last 10, 15 years. And I remember when those were World War II housing for enlisted people. And that was the beginning of our Housing Authority and our low-income housing in Paso Robles. And it had a very bad reputation. If you go up there now, you wouldn't recognize it. We have increased the total number of units on that facility, and they're all top quality. You would think that they are regular, normal housing units, not anything that's low income. So that hats off to our Housing Authority for the wonderful job they've done and for the further job they're planning to do along with one of our private developers that they have on their board of directors as well. And part of it is a shared board where they built the apartments up there at Oak Park, and they're going to be involved in some other projects building those. So we have a lot of good things going, and I'm glad that we're moving in the right direction. And I thank Lindsay for the additional information. It should help us frame a better road forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. I also just wanted to thank Warren for talking about the upcoming projects and just to give us kind of a light at the end of the tunnel for housing. And also, I just want to let Ms. Lindsay know that the city is working on more translating. The website is got more translation friendly. They're getting more staff also. And so just wanted to add that and know that that was one of the comments that the resident made, was that there was not, that there was a language barrier. And I just wanted to let them know that there is help there, and for them to feel that they can call anytime. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilman Gregory.
Warren, thank you for your report. And I think it's really important that people understand the best way to deal with the problem is to get more supply, so people have a choice and can find another place to live in bad situations. And then also to focus on how we can help these folks out in bad situations. But I think as a city, we're very committed to provide more low-income housing as much as we can. With David Cook and his crew, we're now getting to the senior low-income housing. And we're committed to try to make life better here in Paso Robles by providing more supply and try to deal with these issues. So thank you, Warren.
Thank you. We do have a member of the public who wishes to comment on this presentation, Donna Hare-Price. Donna, are you with us?
Yes. Hi. Good evening,
Welcome.
Mayor Martin and Council. Can you hear me?
We can.
Hello? Oh, perfect. Good evening. How are you, Mayor Martin and Council? I'm
Very
Donna
well.
Hare-Price, Chair of the Rent and Mortgage Relief Coalition of San Luis Obispo County and with the Housing Now statewide coalition. Thank you, Lindsay Holden, the Promotores Collaborative, and the Tribune for the time, attention, and care in which you reported these stories, and for your continued commitment to call our attention to this issue. Lindsay's stories highlighted the real consequences for our most vulnerable communities when they speak out to live in a habitable building. Landlord retaliation is real, and just because the tenant complaint hotline is not lighting up with calls doesn't mean it isn't happening. Sadly, it means that our most vulnerable renters know that complaining means living in unhealthy and dangerous conditions, which is better than living on the street during a global pandemic because of eviction. We know evictions are happening now, and statewide housing advocates are concerned we will see a tsunami of evictions after June 1st if our statewide eviction protections are lifted. One proven means of curbing evictions for low-income tenants is to break the pattern of unequal representation between tenants and landlords. This can be done by guaranteeing legal representation for tenants, known as a right to counsel, when a landlord sues for eviction. I'm going to make several asks for the Paso City Council tonight to address the situation with real solutions. My first ask: please use your ARPA funds allocated for homeless services, or if absolutely necessary, the flexible funding that you will receive to provide right to counsel by assigning monies to the SLO Legal Assistance Foundation or California Rural Legal Assistance Fund. Other cities are actually creating their own right to counsel programs, and that would be fantastic, but there are other ways that we can address this issue by funneling money to our existing resources here in our county. Funding right to counsel reduces homelessness and is good for our community and our economy. In addition, You can use ARPA or future infrastructure funds to hire bilingual code enforcement officers. Number 2, the Board of Supervisors changed their ledge platform to increase eviction protections. Please ask the Board of Supervisors, especially Supervisors Pashong and Gibson, to allocate funds for right to counsel using our county ARPA funds. Number 3,
Ma'am, that's 3 minutes. Could you summarize, please?
There's also a statewide rent registry of AB 1188 that I would love for the Paso City Council to sign on to support, because that also provides protections to our landlords and could have been used to reach out to our small landlords for ERAP. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking to you all about these solutions. Thank you all.
Thank you for your comments, and I for one would appreciate it if you would email that information you gave me so that we can look at it in greater detail. I'm sure the other council members would like to see it also, but thank you for speaking up tonight. We appreciate it. I see no one else waiting in line. Thank you. I see no one else waiting in line on this item. We're going to move on now with general public comments. This is the time set aside for the public to address the council on items within the council's purview, but not scheduled on tonight's agenda. If you would please begin by stating your name and address. Each person is limited to 3 minutes. We try to be gentle when that time is over. Any person or subject requiring more than 3 minutes may be scheduled for a future council meeting or referred to committee or staff. Those persons wishing to speak on any item scheduled on the agenda will be given an opportunity to do so at the time that item is being considered. We currently have 3 people waiting in line for general public comment. Lauren Hanley is first, followed by John Borst, and then Jan Alvin. So Lauren, are you with us?
Hi, I am. How are you tonight?
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you. That was nice presentations ahead of time, some very important topics. So I'm glad to be here as well. My name is Lauren Hanley. I've been to a few of these meetings with the We Are the Care initiative. And as you heard Mayor Martin speak about the proclamation of the month of Child and Child Abuse Prevention Month, April marks a time to recognize that our community's children are precious and the quality of their early years is our collective responsibility. We all have a role to play in ensuring each and every child has access to those high-quality early environments spoken in the proclamation, at home, at childcare, at school, and in the community that will then promote their optimal growth and development. You might be wondering how you can honor and support the children and families in our community during the month of April. And luckily, we have 3 great opportunities for you all. Number 1, explore the hashtag Kids Are Essential initiative. This national campaign stands for high quality childcare, paid leave, economic security, maternal and child health, mental health, and was born out of the many crises that are impacting children and families. COVID, racial injustice, and economic instability inspired this initiative, which upholds a goal to promote children in our society. Visit kidsareessential.org to learn even more. Number 2, assess the policies of the City of Paso Robles in regard to family-friendly practices. Our city is a major local employer and can be an example to other businesses in the community. By requesting HR or administrative staff to evaluate the family-friendly workplace policies currently in place, we can better identify deficits and expand practices to support our employees of Paso Robles. As a reminder, the We Are the Care initiative offers a family-friendly workplace toolkit containing a diverse selection of ideas and examples that can be implemented in order to better support our families. Remember, family-friendly practices are better for business, better for the economy, and better for our city. Visit slowfamilyfriendlywork.org to access this toolkit. Finally, number 3, to honor Month of the Child and value the children and families in our county, consider becoming involved with We Are the Care. Parents, business leaders, child care professionals, elected officials, and all other members of the public are encouraged and welcome to join this initiative. We are thankful for our child care liaison on the council, Councilwoman Garcia, but wish to remind you that all are welcome. We have 4 task forces that meet monthly, and we need the minds and talents that we know are out there in our community to help build this important movement. Visit first5slow.org to learn more about the We Are the Care initiative. Thank you again so much for your time and your commitment to the children and families in this city. We'll be back again soon with more information and updates.
Thank you for your comments. Next, we have John Borst, followed by Jan Alvin. Mr. Borst, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Council, for your fine work. And I'm just here to remind members in our community, if they haven't done so already, to send in their written protest in opposition to the sewer rate increase. A protest form is available on the website nomoreratehikes.info, or send one in of your own following the guidelines that appear on the notice of public hearing that was sent to you in late February or early March. A public hearing on the rate increase is set for April 20th, so get your protest letter in now. Again, if you want a protest form to fill out and send in, one is on my website at nomoreratehikes.info. Also, forms are available on the documents page posted on nextdoor.com. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your time, and look forward to speaking with you on April 20th.
Very good. Thank you for calling. And Jen Albin. Jen, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. My name is Jan Albin, and I am a resident of the Quail Run Senior Estates. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the City Council for their vote in support of the new $5 a year senior permit program. In particular, my special thank you to Donna King and Commander Davis of the Downtown Parking Division. It's only because of their hard work and personal efforts that this program has come to fruition. In 21 days, the city has issued 502 senior parking permits. That's 502 households that can now come downtown to eat, shop, and go to a show without being concerned about the parking or worrying about getting a ticket. What I hear all day, every day, is how grateful folks are to have this program. So on behalf of us older citizens, us older Americans, we are grateful and we thank you.
Thank you very much for calling. I see no one else on the list for general public comments, so we are going to move on with our agenda. I will ask the city manager if we have any agenda items to be deferred tonight.
Yes, sir. There is one item tonight that needs to be continued to a time uncertain. That is item number 15 on your consent calendar, which is an agreement with the Paso Robles Museum Foundation for the sale of a portion of Pioneer Park property and leased back by the city. The discussions need to continue at a staff level so that the proposal we bring back to you provides all the information the council needs to make the best decision. So that item we are requesting be deferred.
Very good. Thank you. Up next, we have consent calendar, which encompasses everything else other than that item. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine, not requiring separate discussion. However, if discussion is wanted by a member of the council or public, the item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Council members and members of the public may offer comments or ask questions of clarification without removing an item from the calendar. Individual items are approved by the vote that approves the consent calendar unless an item is pulled for separate consideration. Items pulled from the consent calendar are usually heard at the end of the meeting. So with that, I will go around to our city council members and ask if they have any questions or comments of clarification or any items they would like to have pulled from the consent calendar. Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question about 14 with regard to the rental fees for the field, the Paso Robles youth sports. Staff, how long would that, I mean, the proposal is to basically disregard the fees for this year, 2021. To what month at the end of this year or to the end of a calendar fiscal year? Where are we at on timing?
I can answer that for you, Councilman Hammond. This is Julie Dolan, Community Services Director, and the intention is to just go through the calendar year. In a typical year, the member teams of the Paso Robles Youth Sports Council would reserve fields to the amount of about $10,000 maximum. With an already abbreviated season, we feel that we wouldn't garner much more than $6,000. So that's what we're talking about through the end of the calendar year, and probably around $6,000 in fees.
Very good. Yeah, just as we're helping other parts of the community with regard to support through COVID, I would agree with this one too. But no further questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strong.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only question had to do with the minutes we received. And I'm wondering if there's a good reason why we received a full year's minutes of the Planning Commission all at one time.
Got a staff comment on that?
Yeah, community development fell behind on the planning commission minutes due to staffing shortages during COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Garcia.
No, sir, I don't have anything to add, or I don't have any questions either. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if we can get someone to talk about item 12 just briefly so the public understands what's going on with that.
Can you give us about 60 seconds on that?
Yeah. Sure. Anybody?
Mr. Thompson, would you like to address that, please?
Yes, good evening. This is Matt Thompson. For many years, the Paso Robles landfill has had permission from both the Regional Water Quality Control Board and the state's Department of Toxic Substances Control to receive treated wood waste. This is wood that's treated with creosote, stuff like power poles and old railroad ties. And a couple of months back, the state's Department of Toxic Substance Control allowed an exemption for all landfills in California that receive treated wood waste to expire. And
Matt, are you okay?
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties. I had a data problem. Anyways, this exemption from the state's Department of Toxic Substances Control had expired, and the Paso Robles landfill quickly reapplied for a new exemption. And unfortunately, the new limitations associated with that exemption require our landfill operator to significantly increase how much they handle treated wood waste. They have to segregate it from other forms of solid waste going into the landfill, and they have to track each generator of treated wood waste. And so those are the increased costs that have necessitated an increase to the rate for treated wood waste at the landfill.
And Mr. Gregory, our approach is that the persons bringing a waste stream that requires special handling should be the one that pays for that rather than the general public paying for it. So this is why we're requesting a rate increase to be paid for by the deliverers of the treated wood waste to the landfill.
And then will we be, just a lot of people are asking questions about it. So does that include painted wood or is that only treated wood?
That does not include painted wood. That is just wood that is treated with chemicals like creosote.
Okay, so that'll be on our website, hopefully, so if people have questions, they can go to the website and see what the change is.
Yes, sir. All the landfill rates will be updated on our website.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. That's all for me.
Thank you. I have no questions. We have no questions from the public on items under active consideration tonight for the consent calendar. So if there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Public comment?
We have no one.
Oh, okay. Then I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, items 8 through 14 for approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. There's no further discussion on the motion. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. And for those who have not taken the opportunity to look at our agenda online with this consent calendar, which is linked to staff reports, I'll ask the city manager if he would give us a short report on these items so that people listening and know what we've accomplished by this vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy to do so. So tonight on its consent calendar, the City Council approved its special meeting minutes from March 9th, as well as its regular meeting minutes from March 16th. Those are crucial because those constitute the official record of the City Council's actions. The Council also received the warrant register, and the warrant register is the listing of checks that the city writes to pay for the goods and services that it purchases. In this particular period, the warrant register totaled $1.6 million in total from all funds, of which about $410,000 was the water fund, and that included the coating of the Golden Hill tanks. And then secondly, about $240,000 from the wastewater fund, and that included the work that residents have probably noticed on South River Road for an abandonment of a sewer manhole and related piping. The council also, as has been pointed out, received advisory body minutes from the Planning Commission, a significant number of those minutes, as well as minutes from one meeting of the Library Board of Trustees. The council, as has just been discussed, approved an adjustment to the rates for treated wood waste received at our city-owned landfill. And that's a huge advantage to the city's businesses and residents that the city owns its own landfill and contracts out with a private operator. The council also approved a grant for $23,000 from the FAA to assist with our coronavirus response. And that allows us to do additional cleaning and sanitizing of surfaces at the airport that are accessed by the public. And then finally, as has already also been discussed, the council approved a field rental fee waiver for the Paso Robles Youth Sports Council for the remainder of 2021 calendar year. And that's a huge benefit given that the Youth Sports Council was hit hard by the pandemic. It makes significant financial and other contributions to the city and the community and allows our kids to get out and exercise. The remaining item, item 15, as has been noticed, was pulled to return to the council at a future meeting. And that's the consent calendar this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. We move on now to public hearings. Item number 16, approval of CalPERS retirement contract amendment for Tier 1 miscellaneous POA employees and Tier 1 and Tier 2 police and fire safety members. Staff report, please.
Shannon, are you muted?
Sorry about that. One moment. All right, sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Martin and council members. Tonight we are seeking approval of the first steps of an amendment to the city's retirement contract with CalPERS. The city's contract covers 3 classifications of employees: police safety, fire safety, and miscellaneous. Within each of these classifications, there are 3 different benefit levels, also known as tiers, which all require contributions from both employees and the city. In early 2020, Council approved agreements with each of the city's labor groups, which provided for certain members based on classification and tier to contribute an additional 2 to 5% toward retirement costs over the course of the 3-year contracts. This additional contribution, known as cost sharing, is a portion of the employer contribution and is permissible under Government Code Section 20516. In July 2020, Council approved a retirement contract amendment to implement the first phase of cost sharing, in which Tier 1 miscellaneous members and Tier 1 and Tier 2 police and fire safety members and all groups picked up an additional 2% of retirement costs. The second phase of cost sharing provides for Tier 1 and Tier 2 police and fire safety members and Tier 1 miscellaneous POA members to contribute an additional 2% effective June 27, 2021. To implement these changes, the city must amend its retirement contract following specific steps and timelines as required by CalPERS and the government code. The first step is approval of a resolution which declares the city's intent to approve the amendment and outlines each of the proposed changes. Tonight, we are also introducing for first reading the ordinance to implement the contract change. The second reading and adoption of the ordinance, which will authorize the mayor to execute the amendment, is scheduled for the May 4th council meeting. The amendment will be effective 30 days later on June 6th, and affected employees will begin paying the additional 2% cost share starting June 27th. The city's last scheduled contract amendment will occur in June 2022 and will provide for Tier 1 miscellaneous POA members to cost share an additional 1%. One goal during contract negotiations with the city's labor groups last year was for all members within a group to pay the same amount toward retirement regardless of what tier they were in. Completion of the last phase of cost sharing next year will result in having achieved this goal. In addition to initiating the contract amendment process, tonight we are also seeking approval of the city's master pay schedule, which has been revised due to recent classification and wage changes. The California Code of Regulations requires the city maintain this pay schedule encompassing all positions covered by a compensation plan. That concludes my presentation tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Let's start off again with Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shannon, question on our options here. I'm not quite understanding. You have option 1 and then option number 2, both saying essentially the same thing, where we're going to begin a resolution of intention on option 2. Why do we have 2? Are both available for us to look at, or what?
Option 2, I'm sorry. So the option 2 encompasses each of these 3 items: approving the resolution, introducing the ordinance, and also approving the master pay schedule.
Okay, that's what I would think we'd want to do. It looks like the best option to move forward. I just had that question. I didn't understand that when I was reading the report. So that's all I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Strong.
No additional questions. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
No, sir, no additional questions.
Thank you. Councilman Gregory.
No questions, but is there to approve the master pay schedule, is there a document to review on that, or is it part of the staff report?
It is part of the staff report as attachment 3.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking at my screen here. I see no one lined up from the public to make comment on this, so I'm going to open and close public comment. Bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Mr. Hammond?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion whenever you're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Go for it.
Okay, then I'd like to go ahead and approve option 2, where we are going to approve resolution and intention 21XXX, giving notice of intention to approve the amendment to the city's CalPER retirement contract as authorized by Government Code Section 20516. I guess you have to be in separate motions.
That's a question for the lawyer. Do we have to do separate motions on these?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So we need a second, I guess.
Okay, we need a second. I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. If there's no further discussion on that motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory.
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia.
Aye.
Councilmember Strong.
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion then to introduce for first reading by title only and waive further reading of the ordinance to amend CalPERS contract for the City Tier 1 miscellaneous BOA members and Tier 1 and Tier 2 police and fire safety members.
Second by
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilwoman Garcia. If there's no further discussion on the motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory,
Aye.
Councilmember Strong,
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to finally approve the master pay schedule effective April 6, 2021.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilwoman Garcia. If there's no further discussion on the motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory,
Aye.
Councilmember Strong,
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We move on now to item number 17, Plan Development, PD 20-12, Oak Tree Removal, OTR 21-02, Justin Winery Building number 4 and 5, 2265 Wisteria Lane, and a whole bunch of numbers after that, 025-435-027, 025-425-030, and 025-435-034. Staff report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is Darren Nash, City Planner. This item before you is for Justin Winery. This is their existing winery facility at 2265 Wisteria Lane. Looking at the vicinity map on the screen, north to south is Golden Hill Road. On the left, Wisteria Lane is the northern end of Golden Hill Road, kind of north of the Lowe's Center there. Wisteria Lane travels to the east, and at the current end of Wisteria Lane is the existing Justin facility. As you're aware, there's various subdivisions and developments that will extend Wisteria Lane up to the north towards the airport. This is an extension of Wisteria. This will ultimately become part of the parallel routes and the realignment of Airport Road. But at the corner of that extension is additional parcels that were created with that tract map that Mr. Erskine and Justin Winery went through a few years ago. So this particular project would add 2 additional buildings to the existing 3-building campus. The gray shapes there are the buildings 1 through 3. The buildings 4 and 5 are what are before the council tonight. And just to back up, so this is a development plan amendment that is amending the campus for the project to add these buildings. Typically, this development plan would end at the Planning Commission, but they're asking for an oak tree removal, and the removal of oak trees, the oak tree ordinance requires council action on that. So the project, the development plan is coming up to the Planning Commission along with the request for the oak tree removal. The one oak tree is shown there in the kind of the area where building 5 is proposed. So this is a decent tree. It has some health issues. An arborist report has been provided. This was something that was reviewed at the Planning Commission level. The Planning Commission made a recommendation to the council that the development plan amendment be approved, as well as the removal of the oak tree. This particular slide is showing the lot lines that were approved in the yellow dashed configuration. This is with the tentative map. In order to accommodate these buildings, there's an adjustment to that tentative map that'll be worked on with the final mapping, but there's some adjustments that need to be made to accommodate the proposed 2 additional buildings.
I did a couple more ads, Bill.
And then again, the request tonight is to remove an oak tree on that parcel as well. So the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the City Council to approve the development plan and oak tree removal. The Commission did request some additional landscape plans and address some areas that weren't shown on the original plans. And so we've provided some additional materials. This is the landscape and fencing plan that's shown down at the corner. As you go to the northeast on the Wisteria extension, the landscaping and improvements go to the edge of building 4, but this additional sheet also shows it going beyond to include the truck staging area shown there, as well as the detention basin. So these were 2 areas that weren't previously shown on the landscape plan. This plan better shows that these areas will be landscaped and treated, and that is what the Planning Commission was requesting would happen. So there will be a presentation by Emily Ewer of Oasis Associates. She is on behalf of the applicants, the planning group that is going to be making a presentation. But what we're looking for tonight is for the council to take the necessary options. One could be take no action. The other option 2 would be sustain the decision by the Planning Commission approving the development plan and the oak tree removal, or 3, modify the decision of the Planning Commission, or overrule the Planning Commission, thereby denying the project, or 5, provide an alternative direction to staff. But with that, that would conclude staff's presentation. And as I mentioned, Mrs. Ewer would be following up with an applicant presentation when the council's ready for that.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the applicant presentation so we've got all the questions in one basket, okay?
Okay. This is Emily Ewer. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So good evening, Mayor Martin and council members. As I said, my name is Emily Ewer. I am the Associate Planner at Oasis Associates, representing the applicant, Justin Vineyard and Winery. Carol Florence, Oasis's Principal Planner, sends her apologies. She intended to present tonight, but she loves working with the City of Paso Robles. However, she's been rendered temporarily indisposed by her 2nd dose of COVID vaccine. So we wish her a speedy recovery from that. I am accompanied this evening by Steve Beard, who is Director of Capital Improvements for Justin, Andres Ulate, who is the Project Architect with Holtz Associates, and Rob Miller, the Civil Engineer with Wallace Group. So they are available as well to answer any questions. It was our distinct pleasure to work with Lori Wilson and Darren Nash on the project, and a special thank you to DRC and Planning Commission, who provided their informed, clear, and concise recommendations. So with that, I would respectfully request that the City Council review the project details and ultimately approve PD 2012 and OTR 2102 per the 2 drafted resolutions. The applicant has reviewed and accepts the 14 conditions of approval noted in Exhibit A and the 39 conditions of approval in Exhibit B, and of course the related findings. So with your approval tonight, the applicant is prepared to initiate right-of-way improvements associated with Tract 3069 and construction plans for Building 5. So a bit of history, hopefully you can see my screen here. Starting in 2001 with the first subdivision for commercial development, then there was construction of Wisteria 1 in 2008. Wisteria 2 followed in 2012, yet another subdivision in 2016, which is the one that Mr. Nash had noted. City Council's most recently reviewed Wisteria 3 in August of 2018, and so fast forward a bit, and here we are today.
Emily, we can't see your screen.
Okay. Let me see what is going on here. Let me try sharing it again.
There it is.
Okay, excellent. So here again is an overall look at the campus with buildings 1, 2, and 3 as constructed. With building 3, there was additional area added to the open space easement to north of the campus. With building 5, it's proposed on the corner of Wisteria and what will be called Erskine Way. And behind that is Wisteria 4 to the north. So beyond this proposed development as part of the PD, there are the public right-of-way improvements that Darren mentioned related to Tract 3069, and that includes the extension of Wisteria, the new roundabout intersection, and Erskine Way, which will connect to the airport ultimately. So we have provided a few architectural perspectives with views from either direction along Erskine Way, one highlighting Building 5 and the other highlighting Building 4. We do have the 4 elevations of each building for reference. I won't go into much detail here unless there are specific questions. For contextual purposes, along Wisteria Lane, this is a representation of Building 2 elevation, which of course is existing to the left, and the proposed Building 5 to show a comparison between the building height and massing, and of course the continuation of the campus architectural style. So again, as Darren mentioned, the landscape conceptual plan, this highlights a little bit in broader terms the proposed fencing. So along the streetscape and frontage, there's an open picket metal style fence that will be used with chain link fencing regulated to the rear and non-public facing areas. We did include additional detailing and information in response to Planning Commission's direction for the continuation of the screening of the landscaping along Erskine beyond the proposed stormwater basin. And that basin will also be fenced with the more decorative metal type fencing. So additionally, we want to acknowledge that Exhibit A, condition of approval number 9, reflects Planning Commission's direction that the landscape plans for the building permits will be submitted to the Development Review Committee for their review. And in regards to oak trees, the design team arranged and then rearranged the buildings and parking areas to avoid impacts to oaks to the greatest extent possible. The result was that tree T3 was still within Building 5's footprints. As noted in the arborist report, the health and vigor of this tree is suppressed and stressed. We have designated 4 oak tree replacement areas where 13 oak trees will be planted, and those are highlighted in the green blobs. So we would request you uphold Planning Commission's recommendation to approve removal of this tree, as the development is designed to provide safe and efficient operational use of the property while protecting and minimizing 6 other oaks in the area. So here again is the proposed minor lot line adjustments. We do want to note condition of approval number 7 in Exhibit A specifically notes that requirement that any future changes in ownership would require the city's review and possible amendments to the BTU to ensure that parking is maintained on campus. And that is shown here as far as the development within that reconfigured parcelization. There's parking information provided here as well. As noted in the historical timeline, the buildings have been constructed over a period of a few years, and related parking has been included to accommodate each new development. With the additions of buildings 4 and 5, some of the existing parking has been relocated and reconfigured, and additional parking has been added to fulfill the requisite parking for the entire campus. We also wanted to provide a bit of information regarding the campus operations, especially since safety is a priority for those operations. The site has been designed to separate the general vehicle circulation from the truck circulation routes. Truck circulation is controlled with mostly one-way routing where possible. The ingress is on Erskine Way, and the primary egress is along Wisteria Lane between buildings 1 and 2, with secondary access shown here between buildings 2 and 5. So the pedestrian routes have been between buildings has been designed and delineated. Workers do predominantly work within one specific building, and each building has break room and employee areas designated. So these operational considerations have certainly informed the configuration and design of the proposed development. Additionally, the design took careful consideration of the development standard compliance, site context, as well as integration into the surroundings. So with that, I want to say thank you to for this opportunity to make this presentation and for your positive response. And myself and the team is available for council's comments or questions.
Thank you very much. So let's go to the council for questions of staff or the applicant, starting with Councilman Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Probably for the staff or maybe the developer. Full width Erskine Way being installed to, looks like just south of the truck staging area. Is that correct?
That's correct. So with this project, there will be the improvements of that extension to the property line of this development.
That's both sides, Darren? Both directions?
I believe it's the full width. Dave Athey, if you can confirm that.
Hi, this is David Athey, city engineer. That is correct. So they'll be building the full width of New Airport Road to Lot 10, which is the basin that was shown earlier in the drawing.
Very good. Then, as far as the truck staging area north of Building 4, looks like it's not paved, but DG, keep the dust down. Is that the intent?
Emily, did you want to answer that design question on that staging area?
Correct. That area is intended not to be paved and to be DG with dust control measures.
Right. And then, Emily, further, it looks like you're keeping all truck traffic within the campus, and the only entrance exit is going to be on that east end there of the campus going on to Erskine Way. And then I guess they could exit over toward the west off of Wisteria as well. So there's no other further north entrances down there to that truck staging area is what I was trying to get at.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, very good. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strong.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and a very good presentation. I think it's very well done, and I like the plan. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
I have no further questions. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
The plan looks very well done to me, so no questions. Good.
Very good. So we have no questions from council. We do have one person standing by for public comment. We'll go to that person right now. Mr. Dale Guston, are you with us, Dale?
I am Dale Guston, 945 Spring Street. I have a request on item 15 that when it comes back to the council, that it not be on the consent agenda. That's too important an item to be on consent item. As to item 17, I'd like to remind this council of two things. One, this is the outfit that clear-cut huge acres of oak trees out in the Adelaide area. And here we have El Paso Robles is our name of our city, Paso the Oaks. And we're supposed to try and preserve all our oak trees. We got a almost 3-foot diameter blue oak tree that's been on the property since they acquired it, and now they're claiming it's stressed. Why wasn't it maintained, and why shouldn't it be kept? That's my comments.
Thank you. I see no one else in line to comment, so I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion and decision.
Mr. Mayor, I have a further question.
Yes.
Okay, staff, was this project conditioned to use local trades like we've done on other projects?
That is not a specific condition of the project. However, many of the design group are local local folks that we've dealt with, and I think maybe they can comment on with these buildings. I assume they'll use similar construction firms they've used for the rest of the campus, so maybe the applicant can respond to who they intend to use.
Yeah, I know that if Steve Beard wants to jump in on that to refresh my memory of who our consultant team is, or Rob Miller is here as well.
Thanks, Emily. Rob Miller. Just wanted to briefly respond to that. Of course, all the construction trades have not been let out yet, but I can tell you that our current low bidder for the Wisteria extension or new airport road is a local Paso Robles contractor.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Yeah, again, I want to make sure that we at least have an opportunity to talk and bid local trades to you to have this built. So I'm not going to make it a condition, but I want to make sure that that's your intent as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Steve Beard from Justin Winery, or representing Justin Winery. Our intent is to definitely have on the bid list local contractors.
Thanks. A reminder to the council, we have 2 resolutions. They'll have to be handled separately. Mr. Strong?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And I think the arborist report was very good about the oak trees, and I'm satisfied with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia?
Nothing further, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory?
I'm happy with the presentation and the explanation on the oak tree removal. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that I understand on the replacement, we're replacing, am I reading this correctly, 11 to 1? Is that true?
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that they are replacing per the ordinance with the number of trees plus additional trees.
So actually going beyond the ordinance requirement for replacement.
Correct.
We wind up with many more oak trees than we have right now. I like that. Okay, I would entertain a motion on the first resolution.
Mr. Mayor, if no one else, I'll go ahead and do that.
Please do.
Go ahead and approve resolution 21XXX approving plan development 20-12.
Do we have a second?
Second by Greg.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. If there's no further discussion on the motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Strong,
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and approve resolution 21XXXB approving oak tree removal 2102 subject to site specific conditions and if approval.
Second by Gregory.
Motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. If there's no further discussion on the motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory,
Aye.
Councilmember Garcia,
Aye.
Councilmember Strong,
Aye.
Mayor Martin.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on now to council business and committee reports. Mr. Hammond.
Actually none that I think there was seniors, but other than that, nothing really. We haven't had any IWMA or ABCD yet. So we're good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Strong.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a very busy time with meetings, constituents, and our city team to resolve various problems. I had a meeting with Cal Cities on various policy issues on March 18th, a CalCog Board of Directors meeting on the 21st, the CalCog Annual Leadership Forum on the 22nd and 23rd, Interim City Manager Greg Carpenter on 25th, and NLC with some White House presidential advisors on April 1st. Followed that evening by a city council meeting with interviews for membership on the new sales tax oversight committee. There is still a pocket of opposition to the sewer rate increase due to many misunderstandings and misinformation being sent out by people who don't know the actual background or the increase and the dire consequences of not doing it. We're scheduled to get some significant additional federal and possibly state relief based upon actual losses suffered during the pandemic as compared to our last full pre-pandemic fiscal year. I'm expecting something in the neighborhood of $6 million+ for the city. There are still efforts pending to remove our ability to make independent local decisions on density, zoning, general planning, and parking. Some in the state want to eliminate much of our parking and force people to use non-existent public transit. We are opposing those efforts through Cal Cities. The federal government is headed toward significant confrontations between the two major political parties over actual needs of our citizens for adequate and safe travel, as well as public safety and the environment. Each side has good and poor points in its position. Both parties have realigned from where they were 65 years ago and are back in a new transition period where each is striving to be more like the other as they used to be without trading off their currently most extreme positions. Of course, that's my personal analysis as seen from the inside of the workings at the national and state levels. Unfortunately, it's our citizens who get ground up in the process of the infighting. Our other meetings I've had deal with better infrastructure throughout Paso Robles and our region with appropriate funding if it doesn't get derailed. Tomorrow, I have 2 regional and 1 national meeting all taking place at the same time. I hope to be able to handle 2 of them simultaneously. And that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that report. Councilwoman Garcia.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I was part of the oversight interviews we did last week, and I've just been pretty busy at Walmart. We do have our COVID Janssen vaccines, so we've been administering those, and so I've just been going in. They start at 7:20 in the morning with appointments, so I've been doing double duty, sir. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, I was attended a Zoom meeting with Mayor Martin and our superintendent of schools, Kurt DeBost, in a liaison meeting. It's been a while since we've had one, so we were able to get a lot of information from Kurt regarding the school situation and the discussion on Georgia Brown. Also, I too was involved in the interview process for the J20 Supplemental Tax Advisory Committee. And it's been I think we almost had a whole week off, I think. So I'm sort of lost. But anyway, I just wanted to say one more time, share my appreciation about Tom Frucci, our city manager, is departing. I got to interview and discuss and meet with our interim city manager coming on board. And I just really want to wish Tom the best. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. I attended 2 meetings of the Homeless Services Oversight Committee, also attended the School District Liaison Committee, met with the mayors from around the county, met with the City Selection Committee to put forward candidates for the Coastal Commission, was interviewed by Transitional Mental Health Care about needs here in Paso Robles. I attended the final meeting of the Economic Vitality Corporation. They are going away and merging with the REACH organization. I also attended a meeting for that organization, which is committed to economic development on a regional basis. I've been out filming promotional videos for our downtown businesses, establishing something called Main Street TV for our Paso Robles Main Street Association. I attended a Channel Counties Division meeting where I was elected president of the executive board. I was on Sound Off the Day on KPRL. And I would like to thank our own Melissa Martin Boyer, because she's going to be helping me out with that Channel Counties Division assignment. And also what many people don't know is behind the scenes on these meetings, she's the one pulling the electronic strings, making sure that people are admitted into the waiting rooms and put on the air when it's time to put them on, and making sure that we remain connected. So it may look easy from the outside, but it's not on the inside, and we appreciate your service, Melissa. And with that, I'll ask if we have any further business, Mr. City Manager.
Not that I see, Your Honor. I think you've covered it.
Thank you. Upcoming events, Library Board meeting Thursday, April the 8th, 9 a.m. Senior Citizen Advisory Commission meeting April 8th, 1:30 p.m. Planning Commission meeting Tuesday, April 13th, 6:30 p.m. City Council regular meeting Tuesday, April 20th at 6:30 p.m. The deadline for submitting items for the regular meeting on Tuesday, April 20th is Wednesday, April the 7th. And if the council would allow me, I would like to adjourn this evening's meeting with a motion recognizing, again, the service of our outgoing city manager, Mr. Tom Frucci.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Gregory, second by motion by Councilman Hammond, second by Councilman Gregory. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, be more enthusiastic. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's what I'm talking about. All right. Anybody opposed? Very quiet. Thank you very much. We are adjourned. Thank you to the council, to the staff, to the community, everyone for their very hard work. Have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. You as well.